Reminds me very much of Hockenheim when we raced there, because you come into a very big stadium.
Big stadium that 10 days ago was filled with 110,000, mainly German fans.
When you drive into the stadium, you have peace and quiet, and then you arrive in with the whole crowd, with the waving flags, and you can really feel the power of the people sitting there. You can feel the energy that they're giving out.
Well, Coulthard finished in second place, not able to quite keep up the pace of Schumacher.
Something very special.
But nonetheless, it was a good effort from Coulthard in only his second race in Grand Prix racing at Hockenheim. However, the crowd support for Schumacher must have been worth something. We asked David about the crowd support and how it's affected him in the past at Silverstone.
I remember last year that when I was racing with Jean Alesi, when at the end of the Hanger Straight I pulled out to pass him into Stowe Corner. And I could hear, above the noise of the car, the crowd going, ah, and they were really cheering, and it was something quite unbelievable and something I'd never ever expected would be possible, that you could hear the crowd above the noise of the cars. Always look straight at the camera. Am I here okay?
Well, this week the Athletics World Championships are on Eurosport from Gothenburg. The Grand Prix drivers are also athletes, if perhaps not quite so visibly once they're in the car. Michael Schumacher known to be one of the fittest, but we asked David Coulthard why all this training is so important.
The main reason, of course, is that in the racing car you pull very high G, and you pull up to about 4.5 G on cornering and up to about 5 G in braking. So you have to have a very strong neck and obviously forearms and a good grip to hold on to the steering wheel.
Various ways of going about it: weight training, swimming and running, all a key part of a Grand Prix driver's training program. It's all an art, even how do you breathe.
Of course, when you're driving a racing car, when you go through a fast corner, you're holding the breath for a small moment and then you breathe once you leave the corner. So it's very important to be good for the breathing.
Well, fitness in a 1.5 hour race is obviously important, but so is the vital point of the start of the race, just like a sprinter.
It is very similar, but of course instead of having the explosion of the physical energy that you have in athletics, it's an explosion of using the power of the car.
Preparation before an event and the mental build-up, also comparable between athletics and race driving. The focus and concentration required, and the concentration for long periods of time in Formula One race. And of course in Formula One, the increased awareness of the personal risk factor.
For me, the start of a race is the most exciting part, because obviously it's like you're going out of the blocks, and it's very intense and it's very nervous, but as I say, it's the part which, if you get right, is very satisfying. You feel yourself focusing very much on making a good start. But as I say, when the green light comes on, there's no feeling like it. It's quite fantastic.
Well, it hasn't been easy fitness-wise for Coulthard this year, what with his tonsillitis problems, but that's all behind him now, and he can really train hard for the next races. So after his win in the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, Michael Schumacher celebrated once again last week when he got married to girlfriend Corinna Betsch. A church in Kerpen in his hometown. Actually had to put it off earlier on in the day when all the press and photographers found out about it, but eventually the marriage took place. Over the weekend, much greater celebrations were held as well, with the press kept at bay, although the TV rights were sold for something like 480,000 Deutschmarks. That money going to charity. Well, a massive amount of attention from the press as ever. And of course, a lot of that attention for Michael Schumacher is centred on where he will be driving in 1995. Rumours abound at the moment, and Michael Schumacher still being connected with Ferrari by many people, but the question still remains, will he stay with Benetton Renault or go to Ferrari? Well, Briatore saying that it's normal that people talk. A driver who's not wanted by a team is obviously not a star. Why does everybody kowtow to Schumacher and not to Johnny Herbert? Well, it's simple, because Michael is the most important. It's like when you see a pretty girl in the street. Everybody turns and looks. If she's not so pretty, no one looks. Life's like that. So Schumacher, perhaps he's going to Ferrari. It would look as though McLaren and Williams now more or less out of the equation. McLaren perhaps not yet ready to provide a competitive enough car, and Williams perhaps not prepared to spend the money on the retainer that Schumacher is looking for. But Schumacher himself is keeping it all pretty quiet.
I think it's stupid to always continue. I think it's now finished. I said already that I'm in Benetton at the moment, and there's no reason to always continue. I will make my decision, and you will get know about this.
Well, the rest of the Formula One world is waiting to know as well, because it affects the whole driver market. And if he should go to Ferrari, well, perhaps we would see Jean Alesi move to replace him at Benetton. Certainly Renault would be keen to get Alesi with Renault power. Gerhard Berger seen talking here with Ron Dennis, and perhaps Gerhard Berger will move back to McLaren. Certainly a possibility. And what of Williams? Well, Damon Hill and David Coulthard, neither are under contract for next year, and no option existing on either of them so far either. Jacques Villeneuve, of course, was testing for them last week. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, also a name mentioned. Williams have an option on Frentzen until the end of September. But what about Jean Alesi as well? If Schumacher should stay at Benetton, then perhaps Jean Alesi could end up at Williams. Jacques Villeneuve put in a very impressive test last week at Silverstone. 3 days of testing. Not quite managed to get in a quick lap at the end of the 3-day test, when he managed to switch the fuel pump off instead of on, and was denied the opportunity of a fast lap on new tyres. But a new driver who will be out this weekend, not quite new, making a return to Formula One in Hungary, is Portuguese driver Pedro Lamy. 23 years old and veteran of just 8 Grand Prix, all for Lotus in the past. He replaces Pierluigi Martini, and a few laps at Fiorano got him into the swing of things last week.
Eagle F1, der neue Hochleistungsreifen von Goodyear. Von unseren Erfahrungen auf der Rennstrecke profitieren auch Sie auf der Straße. Eagle F1, neu von Goodyear.
This year, we're doing everything in our power to win our 4th consecutive World Championship Constructors title on the track. And every day, we're doing everything in our power to win your trust on the road. Renault, it pays to be different.